Hello, students. Today I'll try to give some tips regarding the forthcoming ISC economics exam. Yes, this time the questions may be a little different from the traditional pattern, and it's very obvious, it's guaranteed that about 10% of the questions will be higher order thinking skills questions. All the questions in the question paper may not be very straightforward direct questions. So be aware of that, don't be afraid. I'll give some tips regarding some of the chapters. Today I will focus on some of the chapters like demand and law of demand. In every chapter, not only this, in every chapter, please go into the depth, understand the concepts with proper understanding, study. If you have a sound knowledge regarding each and every concept, then you will find no difficulty in any question. Like some examples, I'll cite what type of higher order thinking skills questions or with high difficulty level questions can be there. Like one question can be that assertion and reason that you all have come across in your this session. That assertion and reason, assertion is true, reason is false, or assertion and reason both are correct, and the reason which is given R is the correct explanation of the assertion. This kind of question will be there. Now, question can be like a new industry comes up in a place, any particular place's name is there, where a new industry comes up in that area for which some people or many people who were unemployed gets job opportunities, many people get job opportunities in that industry. How will this affect the demand for TV in that region, in that area? If suppose this question is asked, then your answer will be the demand for TV sets will increase. There will be a rightward shifting in the demand curve for TV sets because the increase in the income of the people in that area will be there. And as the income of the people in that area will increase, there will be increase in the demand for TV sets, though the price of TV sets may remain the same. So this kind of question, where it's not direct question, like what will happen if there's increase in demand, show it with the help of diagram, may not be. So you have to understand what the question is saying. Okay, like another one, suppose in order to encourage tourism in Goa, the government of Goa suggests Indian Airlines to reduce airfare to Goa from 4 major cities like Chennai, Kolkata, Mumbai and New Delhi. If the Indian Airlines really reduces the fare to Goa, then how will this affect the market demand curve for air travel to Goa? Then here, the demand curve for travel to Goa will expand in response to reduction in the airfare. But in this, if you speak about the graph, in terms of the graph or the demand curve, it's not a shifting of demand curve. There will be movement along the demand curve. The price gets reduced, and that is why the demand increases. It is extension or expansion of demand. Because the airfare reduces, and that is why the demand curve, the demand increases, demand rises, demand expands or extends. So this kind of question you may face. There can be a question regarding a passage which is case study. Case study questions can be or will be there. I can't say maybe, it will be. Now, in regarding elasticity of demand, see, in case of demand chapter, the topics that you need to cover: law of demand, assumptions of law of demand, then different types of demand, those concepts like ex-ante demand, exposed demand, joint demand, derived demand, composite demand, all these concepts, you may be given an example. In the question, an example can be given, and you can be asked what type of demand is reflected in this statement. So you need to understand which type of demand is indicated in the example. Like suppose electricity. Electricity is used for several purposes. Can be given like this. Can be used for lighting, can be used for cooking, it can be used for charging different electronic devices. Then which type of demand is reflected in this example? The answer is composite demand, like this. Then you have the law of demand and assumptions, as I said, extension of demand or expansion of demand, and then contraction of demand. Then increase in demand, decrease in demand. Understand what these concepts are meaning. Not only the graphical approach and what factors are leading to it. So understand what happens in case of extension of demand and contraction of demand. There is no change in the other factors. There is change in the price. In case of increase in demand, in case of increase in demand and decrease in demand, it is other factors are changing, price is not changing. So if the example or in the question statement, something of that sort is reflected there, understand which concept is being indicated in the question. Then you have the reasons behind the slope of the demand curve, downward slope of the demand curve. The reasons are there. Price effect, that is income effect, substitution effect, law of diminishing marginality, several uses of a commodity, then change in the number of potential consumers, that thing. Then you have exceptions to law of demand. All those exceptions, the exceptional situations, study that properly, understand each and every exception to its depth. Then after that, let's focus on elasticity of demand. Here also, each and every topic like price elasticity of demand, the methods, the various degrees, what happens when EP is equal to, or elasticity of demand, the price elasticity of demand is equal to 0, or when the value is equal to 1, the value is equal to infinity, the value is greater than 1, less than 1. Not only the names and the graphs and the diagrams and what happens. You need to understand what happens. That very, very is important to know what happens. Yes, a numerical sum can be given from this part. A numerical sum can be given. Now, higher order thinking skills questions, HOTS, the high difficulty level questions can be there. Very short question can be there of 1 mark or 2 marks. Like if you're asked, what do you call the curve under which the area remains the same? The area remains the same in case of a rectangular hyperbola. In case of a rectangular hyperbola, the area, the curve under which the area remains the same is known as rectangular hyperbola. Like in that case, the price elasticity of demand is equal to 1. Okay. Then the pointer geometric method, then total expenditure method, study with proper understanding. Like when price and total expenditure move in the same direction, EP is less than 1. When price and total expenditure move in the opposite direction, EP is greater than 1. When price changes but total expenditure remains constant, then EP is equal to 1. If you know this concept, any question asked to you, you can answer. Now, moving to pointer geometric method, the whole method should be known in a very proper way. Then any question regarding that, like a downward sloping straight line touching both the axes, then what will be the price elasticity of demand at different points? At the topmost point, which touches the y-axis, what is the value there? Lower segment by upper segment. Is there an upper segment? No upper segment. Lower segment is the full demand curve's length. Then length of the lower segment is something, any length divided by 0. Anything divided by 0 is infinity. So there, the value of price elasticity of demand is infinity. Now come to the lowest point where it touches the x-axis. Is there any lower segment? No lower segment. So lower segment is 0 divided by the whole length. Upper segment is the whole length. 0 by anything, it's 0. And then the midpoint there, price elasticity of demand is equal to 1, because upper segment and lower segment are of equal length. Between the midpoint and the topmost point, if you consider a point, then what will happen? The lower segment is greater than the upper segment. If the lower segment is greater than the upper segment, what is the value of price elasticity of demand? Greater than 1. Again, similarly, if you consider a point which is between the lowest point where it touches the x-axis and the midpoint, then the lower segment is less than the upper segment. Then lower segment is less than upper segment means price elasticity of demand is less than 1. So understand this. Any question related to this, you can answer if you know this. Now, about income elasticity of demand. Then what are the different types? Meaning of income elasticity of demand, that is the definition and the formula. Then not only meaning, the types. EY greater than 0, less than 0, and is equal to 0. When does it occur? When is income elasticity of demand is positive? When is it negative? When is equal to 0? Understand with examples for each. Again, for cross elasticity of demand, what does cross elasticity of demand signify? The relation between two types of commodities. Like if we consider two unrelated goods, there is no relation between them. Neither they are substitutes nor they are complements. Then what happens to cross elasticity of demand? 0. So you need to understand all these. In this way, now from this chapter, definitely a numerical sum can be expected. Definitely, that is percentage method of finding out price elasticity of demand. Now about consumer behavior. In the chapter of consumer behavior, the first part, cardinal approach. See, topics like law of diminishing marginal utility, the statement of the law, assumptions of the law. Then you have the illustration of this law with the help of diagram. Now, in relation to that, in relation to this the law of diminishing marginal utility, the diagram, there can be a question, relationship between TU and MU. Now, if you remember the diagram, the graph, TU curve and MU curve, then any question related to that you can answer. Next comes consumer's equilibrium from one commodity case, which is MU is equal to P. That question can come, and they can also ask, like in a question they may give, suppose MU values are given and the price value is also given. Price value suppose 600 and MU value 800, 700, 600, 500. And when the number of units of the commodity purchased is 3, then MU value is 600. Suppose it's given that price of the commodity is 600. Then how many units of the commodity are to be purchased to be in equilibrium? 3. Because when the number of units purchased is 3 units, then MU is equal to P, because MU is 600 and price is 600. So this kind of understanding based question can be asked from this. And then you have the law of equimarginal utility. That means consumer's equilibrium when two commodities are purchased. Suppose the commodities are X and Y, then what is the condition? Condition according to law of equimarginal utility, it is MUX by PX is equal to MUY by PY is equal to MU of the last unit of money, MU per last unit of money. This is the condition. Now for that, understand this condition, a numerical sum can be given. Based on this, a numerical sum can be given. If you know that yes, when MUX by PX is equal to MUY by PY, That is a condition. So when number of units of the commodities are purchased, that is given. The marginal utility from X commodities, those are given. MUY is also given, and price of X and price of Y are given. Then you can find out where the consumer reaches equilibrium. First, find out MUX by PX, the values, MUY by PY, the values, and then because MUX values are given, MUY values are given, price of X and price of Y are given, find out the ratios, and then certain sets of values you will find where in those sets of values MUX by PX is equal to MUY by PY. Then those will be the different combinations in case of which MUX by PX equal to MUY by PY. But all those combinations may not be considered as equilibrium because the total expenditure of the consumer on the two goods must be either equal to the budget, because in the question, the budget, how much he wants to spend, the consumer wants to spend on the two goods, that will be given to you. Then if it's found that the total expenditure on the two goods for a particular combination is exactly equal to the budget which is given, then exactly that combination will be considered as the equilibrium combination. So this is how you solve the sum. Suppose it's given that MUX by PX, the ratio you can find out, and another sum I'm telling, MUX by PX, the ratio you are finding out, and then MUY by PY, the ratio is you are finding out. The values are given. And then you find that MUX by PX is greater than MUY by PY. Then question can be, what will be the reaction of the consumer in case of this situation? When he finds that MUX by PX is greater than MUY by PY, the consumer will have a tendency to buy more of good X compared to good Y. He will go on buying more of good X until that point is reached at which MUX by PX is equal to MUY by PY. So you need to understand this, that the consumer's equilibrium is MUX by PX is equal to MUY by PY. So this is regarding the cardinal utility approach. And then you have the ordinal utility approach, which is regarding the indifference curve analysis. Meaning of indifference curve, how we derive it, the derivation of indifference curve. See, indifference curve is also called ISO utility curve. And the meaning of this, why it's called ISO utility curve, because ISO means equal. From all the points on the indifference curve, we get equal utility or equal satisfaction. And that is why the name is given ISO utility curve, which is another alternative name of indifference curve. Then you find another question is regarding the MRS, marginal rate of substitution. The definition is very important. And when you write the definition of MRS, at the end of the definition, please don't forget to write without changing the level of satisfaction. MRS refers to the rate at which one good is substituted for another good without changing the level of satisfaction. Now, after that, you have the assumptions of indifference curve, but this topic, assumptions, it's not specified in the syllabus, it's not there in the syllabus, so just know it, assumptions. It's very much there. What is the topic? Properties of indifference curve, the four properties that you know. Downward sloping, convex origin. Third is higher indifference curve gives higher utility or higher satisfaction. And the fourth one is two indifference curves never intersect each other. Now, for each of these, know the reason why. In each of these cases, each of these properties, know why it is so. Yes, study that, why it is so. Why is convex origin? Due to diminishing MRS. Like that, for each and every property, know why it is. Then you have what is budget line. What is budget line? Okay, then what is the slope of the budget line? Slope of the budget line is the negative of the price ratio. Suppose the two goods are X and Y. Price of good X, PX, price of good Y, PY. Then negative of the price ratio, P minus PX by PY, that is the slope of the budget line. Okay. Now, what factors can change the budget line, can make a shift to the budget line, can lead to a shift to the budget line? One is income of the consumer. Due to that, the budget line can shift either towards right or towards left. Another thing is prices of the two goods, prices of the two commodities. if there's a change in the price of the two goods, that can also lead to shifting of the budget line. And ultimately, the very important topic, which is consumers' equilibrium using indifference curve analysis. Now, before that, another short question is regarding indifference map. What is indifference map? That's the definition. In a graph, we have a cluster of indifference curves showing different levels of satisfaction. Then when you are showing, we are dealing with that consumers' equilibrium using indifference curve analysis. We are showing in a graph, in the same graph, a budget line and an indifference map. Then here in the graph, mark one point where the budget line is tangent to the highest possible indifference curve. Mark one point below the budget line on a particular indifference curve, below the budget line, and mark another point on the budget line but on a lower indifference curve, and mark another point outside the budget line, beyond the budget line, to the right of the budget line, on a higher indifference curve. Then in the answer, which one you should indicate as the consumer's equilibrium point? The point of tangency, the point at which the budget line is tangent to the highest possible indifference curve. Now, because here the consumer attains equilibrium, the best possible point, consumer's equilibrium is attained at that point where the consumer reaches his highest level of satisfaction. His highest level of satisfaction he's reaching. Now, why that point which is beyond, to the right side of the budget line on the higher indifference curve, the highest indifference curve, he cannot reach because it's beyond the budget line, it's beyond his reach. Whereas the point which is below the budget line on a lower indifference curve, that there he is not making the fuller utilization of the money resource. And that point where it is a point on the budget line but on a lower indifference curve, because we know lower indifference curve will give a lesser amount of satisfaction. So where is the equilibrium point? The point where the consumer is on the budget line and he reaches the highest possible indifference curve. Now, at the end of this answer, you need to write, it's a must thing to write, at the point of equilibrium, slope of the indifference curve is equal to slope of the budget line. We know slope of the budget line is what? Px by Py. You can write minus Px by Py. And the slope of the indifference curve is MRS xy, if we consider two goods to be x and y. So you must write that at the end. MRS xy is equal to Px by Py, or you can write minus Px by Py. So this is all about this chapter. Here again, study every topic, every concept of all these with proper understanding. If you understand everything properly of all these topics, nothing difficult. Even if it's called higher order thinking skills questions or higher difficulty level questions, what will be difficult if you know the concepts, all these concepts? Then nothing can be difficult. Anyway, so today I have discussed about 3 chapters: demand and law of demand, elasticity of demand, and consumer behavior. I will also do a session where some other chapters I will discuss regarding the topics in those chapters, the concepts there in those chapters. Thank you.